Joining us now to weigh in is House Committee on Oversight and Reform member, Pennsylvania Congressman Fred Keller. Good to see you this morning, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Todd and Jillian.
Of course. So as you heard right there, the unmasking itself isn't necessarily the issue. It's the motivation behind it and the actual leak. So how much is there to learn?
Well, there's a lot to learn about who did it, why they unmasked the names, and what were they looking for, and why were they allowed under the FISA warrants to investigate U.S. citizens with no reason? When you look at the investigation by the Horowitz investigation, and you look at what they did and the abuse of power, we need to make sure we root out all the bad actors so they can be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law, given the power back to the people and not just a few select people in the intelligence community.
Congressman, let's take a look at the numbers. We'll pop them up on your screen, both before and after the election. You see in 2015, 654. But then 2016, it jumps to over 9,000. Again, in 2017, over 9,000. A whopping almost 17,000 in 2018 and a little over 10,000 in 2019. Just looking at those numbers, critics of the president are going to say, look, there were a lot more unmasking requests during the Trump years than during the Obama years. What's the White House's best response?
Well, when you look at what's happening, and you've seen it happen many times, anytime the president makes a move, people criticize him. But, when he got elected, he promised to make sure that the power was turned back to the people and promised to drain the swamp. And, there's layers of bureaucracy. And I want to say this. Many of the people that go to work in our intelligence agencies are good, hardworking people. It's a few select people that quite frankly, I think are upset that the person they wanted to win didn't win. President Trump won, and he's turning the power back to the people, and draining the swamp sometimes exposes some very vicious creatures, and we need to make sure we get to the bottom of the issue.
Yeah. Let's talk about this for a second, because the House pulls a FISA reform vote after bipartisan pushback. The president has something to say on this. We can pull up this tweet from yesterday, and this says, quote, "If the FISA bill is passed tonight on the House floor, I will quickly veto it. Our country has just suffered through the greatest political crime in its history. The massive abuse of FISA was a big part of it." What do you make of the events yesterday, and what do you expect to happen now?
Well, I'm looking going forward, I don't think we should do anything until we understand all of what happened, so the reforms we make address and get to the root of the issue, making sure people can be held accountable, making sure this doesn't happen again. And, seeing what we've learned since that passed the House the first time over the past few weeks with, what happened with General Flynn and so on, we really need to be careful that we pass legislation that gets to the core issue and make sure that this doesn't happen again against any other American citizen, against any other presidential candidate, but most importantly, to protect the American citizens. When you look at some of the things people can look at under these FISA warrants, as far as internet searches, all the information that can be rooted out, the American people should be very concerned, and we need to be very deliberative and make sure we get to the bottom of it and understand all the issues surrounding this.
Yeah, Congressman, the poster child for the entire FISA discussion right now is Michael Flynn. What do you think ultimately happens in his case, and how does this whole discussion that we've had factor into that?
Well, again, I would hope that, Michael Flynn gets his justice he deserves. I mean, he's certainly been the victim of a vicious abuse of power. And when you look at it, and when you look at all this happened, and people were telling the president, oh, it's not happening. He knew people were looking into and surveilling his team, and everybody thought it wasn't true. And when you look at what happened now, we've uncovered things over the past couple of years. You've seen that there's been an abuse of power at the top, not by the good agents that work every day, but at the top. And I'm just hopeful that the American people will get the justice they deserve, not just General Flynn, but of course General Flynn, but of course the American people too.
All right, Congressman Fred Keller, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.